I'm Alex Sujong Laughlin, and on every episode of my new podcast, Try Hard, I'm talking to someone about something they've always wanted to do, but haven't. Yet. First, we dig into why they want to do it and what's been getting in the way. And then, we set a challenge for them. You can listen to Try Hard from Defector Media and Radiotopia wherever you find podcasts.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
He's in the building!
Drink the moment. Drink it.
I said empty your mind.
Coquettish and coy. Ow. Ow.
What?
And there's people that are dying.
The wickedly talented.
More than great. It was historic.
Crack is
World.
Oh, good for you.
I have to apologize.
One of the hottest.
Hello, and welcome back to The Reheat, a podcast that re-examines the spiciest celebrity news and scandals of yesteryear and asks, how would we react to the same events if they had transpired today? I'm your co-host, Sarah Sahagian.
And I'm your other co-host, Sadaf Hassan, and today we are going to dissect the personal and professional life of possibly, honestly, I think the wildest person we've ever covered on The Reheat, none other than Charlie Sheen, a man who was at once the golden boy, also the wild child. As he would put it, he's maybe kind of always winning. No, just for a little short period there. So there was the public unraveling, the HIV revelation, an ongoing fight for redemption that's led up to his current memoir, a new 2-part Netflix docuseries that's actually very good. I highly recommend, but it's pretty damn shocking too. So, be prepared. And we're going to share some of its shocking bits today. He reveals a few things, including he lost his virginity to a Vegas escort. Fun fact. Johnny Depp is the one who put him onto cigarettes. And a young ex-girlfriend introduced him to crack, and then she shortly overdosed and died afterwards. That's a little bit of a teaser for the docuseries and the book, and also for today's episode. So I warn you, maybe it's not for you. Sarah, have you ever been a fan of Charlie's? How have you viewed him throughout the years?
No, I'm not a Charlie Sheen fan. The closest I ever came was when he was a guest star on Friends, and he was Phoebe's boyfriend. He was quite good. They both got chickenpox. That was some good physical comedy. I laughed. I was rooting for them. Had he returned to Friends and married her instead of Paul Rudd, I did like Paul Rudd on Friends, but I actually felt like, she had great chemistry with Charlie Sheen. So that's the only time I've ever been a fan. What about you?
Hilarious. You know what? I really loved his little cameo on Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I remember that's probably my introduction to him, I think, as it was to so many people. I was like, who is that beautiful man? But also then, I saw 2.5 Men, and that really was not for me. And then I saw like a few of his other things, really not for me. He's not really my cup of tea, generally speaking. I did love Wall Street. I enjoyed Platoon. There's things here and there. For the most part, he entertains me as like tabloid fodder. I'm sorry to say, Charlie. Okay, so let's do a little bit of rewind on him. Charlie was born as, if you don't already know, Carlos Irwin Estevez in 1965 to legendary actor Martin Sheen and artist Janet Templeton. Acting ran very much in the family. His siblings Emilio Estevez, Ramon, and Renee also entered the industry, but you probably know Mighty Duck Emilio the best, don't we all? He was quite a star. Watching his dad and his older brother rise in the Hollywood spotlight, Charlie definitely started to crave fame. He wanted to be like them, and he had an itch to be an actor, especially because the family used to move around a lot, following Martin around on sets. And then they eventually decided to settle in California. So, that energy is everywhere. He was drawn to film early. He made home movies with his friends, including Rob Lowe and Sean Penn, long before they even became household names. Now, Charlie decided to go with the last name Sheen to align with his dad's career path more closely, while his brother Emilio, as we know, deliberately kept his birth name because he wanted to avoid getting typecast or getting lumped in with his dad. Needless to say, both were lumped in with their father. I mean, first of all, they look a lot like him, and it was just inevitable. Yeah. But Charlie was very happy to have the nepotism and a little bit of help, and it definitely helped. His breakthrough role came in Oliver Stone's Platoon in 1986. You don't just get that by being an average person.
No.
And in that, he played a young soldier facing the horrors of Vietnam. The film won Best Picture at the Oscars, and it made Charlie a star pretty much overnight, just like he dreamt of. The year after, he reunited with the director to make Wall Street, which, as we know, still such an iconic film. He played an ambitious broker, seduced by greed. It all made Charlie one of the defining actors of his generation, and he got great reviews pretty consistently. The thing critics loved was his charm and his edge, which they didn't feel Martin necessarily had. So he already was kind of showing a little bit of distinction. He was standing out from his family. Now, here's the interesting thing. By this time, Charlie was also already a dad. He had his first child with his high school girlfriend, Paula Prophet, great name, when he was just 19. His parents raised his daughter, Cassandra, for the most part. In 1990, he dated and became engaged to actress Kelly Preston, who was infamously hit by shrapnel after a gun went off in their house. They both always insisted it was an accident. Obviously, the press had a field day with this and thought that Charlie shot her. Again, they both insisted that's not what happened, but they did call off their engagement like right after. Sir, what do you make of Charlie as an actor, and do you give him kudos for owning his nepotism? Is he one of the good nepo babies?
No, I wouldn't say that he's better than, say, a Gwyneth Paltrow, right? I don't know. I don't think so. I think that in kind of a similar vein to Gwyneth Paltrow, he didn't really know what he wanted to do, and people would give him auditions because he looked like his dad and because he had his dad's name, and then he got cast. So I think that he's actually quite similar to Gwyneth Paltrow in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, he's different. Don't sue me. He's different in a lot of ways. Having said that, no, I don't like him as an actor. I find he chews on the scenery. And I think you can like movies he's been in, like Wall Street, without being a fan of his. And actually, I think chewing on the scenery kind of works in Wall Street, because it is very melodramatic. But his style, for the most part, I don't think, in my opinion, makes him very versatile. And I don't think he can change that, right? I mean, he's always acting the same way. They have to change the script for him. Like, if you think about when he did Anger Management, they wrote a whole show around the fact that he's just over the top and angry, right? So I feel like the material has to suit him. He can't change to suit the material. I am not an actor. I am not a director. I am not an expert. I just don't like this man, and I don't think he's a good actor.
You have made it very clear. And you know what? I don't totally disagree. And your point is so spot on, because 2.5 Men was essentially written for him, right? Like, that character is him. And we'll get into it more in a bit. But yeah, you're right. You're right. I don't know that he's ever been a particularly good actor. I mean, again, I like him in Ferris Bueller. That is like a 1-minute cameo. And he was playing himself. And I'll explain why in a bit as well. But I've never been convinced he can do more. But the critics felt like he could. They felt like he could do comedy and he could do drama. But I've never really been convinced personally. But anyway, so even during this really quick professional rise, I mean, like unheard of, there was, of course, trouble brewing behind the scenes. Charlie had started experimenting with drugs just before he shot that cameo in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And again, if you remember, one single scene, and it actually required him to look and sound cracked out. Like, literally, that was his look. He had bleary red eyes. He was greasy. He looked rough. He looked like he'd been through it. That was the whole point. He looked like he was showing up for detention, right? So when he showed up on set to film that scene, he was late and he was strung out. And director John Hughes didn't mind at all, because clearly he looked the part. But what's interesting to me about this is I think it's an early sign of the way that during those early years especially, he got more and more access, yes, to things that were not good for him. But also, people just kept giving him chance after chance. Like, it's pretty wild how late he showed up on that set, and John Hughes just didn't even care and was like, just go ahead, and shot the scene and was like, that's perfect, that's great. And all at the same time, he's just doing better and better in Hollywood. Even as he wasn't just dabbling in drugs, he was drowning in them, right? It's fascinating. In his new docuseries, he reveals he was shooting one scene in another movie where he was so high that he had a nosebleed for the entire day. And they had to keep kind of covering it and taking care of it as they shot, which took so much time and effort. Then in another movie, there was one scene where he just couldn't get through it because he was so high. He kept falling asleep. So he went to the bathroom and jammed an ice cube up his ass just to keep his eyes open while he was high on crack. Like, this is insanity. This sounds so exhausting. I don't even know how this would be fun for you or like a good time for you. Years later, he admitted that cocaine felt like an escape that, quote, took me to another galaxy. By the early 90s, his off-screen reputation is already being whispered about in Hollywood. He was a talented actor. People knew that, but also a hard partying playboy. People knew what he was up to. It wasn't really a secret. And again, despite this, he was getting rave reviews. He was getting all the roles. He was doing just fine. So really, why stop? Because if there's no consequence, if you're not losing, there's no reason to, right? Now, it still gets wilder, believe it or not. In 1995, Charlie was exposed as a client of Hollywood madam Heidi Fleiss. We will absolutely do a future episode on her because, my God. In court, he testified that he had spent more than $50,000 on sex workers from her escort service. Now, in his doc that came out last week, he clarified that he actually spent over $1 million on one particular sex worker. And I think he was still lowballing. I think it was well more than that. Heidi later called him a coward for taking the stand and famously said, quote, Robert Mitchum got busted for marijuana, and when they asked for his dealer, he said, charge me with a crime. Charlie should have done the same. He's a rich kid from Malibu. They weren't going to do shit to him, but instead he cried in court. Now, here's the interesting thing. Heidi actually appears in the documentary, which was shocking to me. And she is a kooky lady today. Yep, I would say that you should watch the documentary just to see her because it is really, really something. Now, in his new memoir, Charlie admitted he did feel guilty and regretful about how he handled all of that. He said, quote, I was watching myself watching Heidi stare at me with a look of betrayal and sadness. So this kind of seemed like this key point in his trajectory where he actually realized maybe I am fucking up a little bit here. And the mask slipped for a bit. I think the world got to see a little bit of how much he was indulging, how much he was spending, and maybe he finally kind of clicked into it too. But this was momentary. In 1996, just a year later, he was arrested for assaulting his then girlfriend. And then in 1998, he was hospitalized for a cocaine overdose and a stroke that he had due to the overdose. And that led to rumors, so many rumors, that Charlie had died. The press was going insane. So his father, Martin, spoke up on his son's behalf. He even did a press conference. And he did this a lot throughout Charlie's career, even until recently. He spoke up again and again, defending his son, trying to protect him, letting the press know he would be just fine. They were going to get him some help. And yeah, when Charlie got out of the hospital, he did go to rehab. It was court ordered. So I think that's largely the reason why, because he had a habit of just not doing what his dad told him to do. Now, by the way, during this time, he also married his first wife, Donna Peel. And what I find funny about this is he was using Heidi Fleiss's services at the time of this first marriage. So when all that news came out and when the trial was happening, of course, Donna dumped his ass fairly. Sarah, do you think there's an association between his rise to fame and his drug use and just all of the things he was indulging in?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you're right that Hollywood was kind of casting him to be this edgy person who would do drugs, like his character in Wall Street, obviously, even the cameo in Ferris Bueller. So while, yes, these things were scandals like the Heidi Fleiss Association, I mean, good for that sex worker, though. If she got over $1 million from her, he funded a retirement. Like, good for, like, that's great. I mean,
if she got to keep all that money, because we know Heidi herself was sketch.
Well, yeah, I know. So actually, I hope that woman was fairly compensated for her time and for her work. But yeah, I mean, honestly, Hollywood always has this relationship where they kind of want you to be bad, but then they don't because it inconveniences the shooting schedule, but they still really do. And people in general, right? People like the bad boys. Obviously, the mainstream American did not know how bad he was, right? Like they didn't know about the Ice Cube because that takes all the romance out of being bad. That's just kind of like, oh yeah, that's the ick factor, right? And a lot of drug addiction, it's a disorder, it's an illness, it's drug use disorder, right? And so when we kind of romanticize it as like, this is like just somebody who's bad and fun, we take out the ick factor points, right? And I actually think that ends up, when we romanticize it, that ends up making it so that we don't want to get people help, especially in Hollywood, because they do want the celebrities to be like a little bit edgy, I think, especially at this time, right? Where, I mean, the 80s and the 90s, cocaine was cool, right? Like it wasn't, obviously you shouldn't be doing it. It's bad for you. And if you have a cocaine problem, you shouldn't be ashamed. You should just try to get help. And I hope you do. But it was, at this time, drugs were just kind of they were cool, right? It was kind of like smoking in the 60s. Cool people smoked, right? That was just, if you didn't smoke, you weren't cool. I always remember the Ali Wong joke where in her first special, Baby Cobra, she says, if you don't have HPV, you're a loser. It reminds me of like, I think like in the 80s and the 90s, like, well, cocaine was illegal. It was like, if you didn't do cocaine, you're a loser, right? Like, it's just kind of like, you're a loser.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, now weed is legal here. So is it as cool? I'm not so sure. But it's also, isn't it just such a vicious cycle though? Because you'd see Charlie Sheen, you'd know that he was doing it, and then he appeared quote unquote cooler because of it. Again, this was a time, I know it's not like that now. We don't look at Charlie that way today. But back then, he was definitely looked at that way. Like, he was a big thing. And I think you're so right. Like, the drugs just made him a bigger story in good ways for him and for his reputation in terms of people showing up and wanting to watch his movies, for sure. And they'd pick up the magazine and they'd want to see him on the red carpet. But meanwhile, he's really suffering. And I don't know that people were necessarily like, and when I say people, I mean his team. I don't know that they were rushing to get him help because it must have been just too much. And then at the same time, maybe he was difficult to handle because he had so much access and more money. And he came from the family he did. And Martin was very closely associated with him. Martin would show up everywhere and he was always trying to take care of his son, and that wasn't doing anything. And so I don't know. It's just such a mess. I do think that the more famous he got, the more he turned to drugs. And I wish that somebody had maybe been there for him who he listened to, because I know Martin tried, but he wouldn't listen to him. I think it goes back to the episodes we've done on like former Disney stars, like any kind of former child star. It's such a similar situation, I think. The more that they had, the more trouble they got into. And who was there to protect them and kind of create a barrier there? It doesn't seem like he had that really. Okay, this feels like a very good time to take a quick little break. If you don't know who Heidi Fleiss is, go Google her. This is your chance. Go. And then when you're done doing that, we'll be right back. And we're back. Okay, so by the early, it was somehow Charlie was still hanging on. He transitioned from movies to TV, a move that, believe it or not, at that time was seen as a massive step down, even though today that's a great, great sign in your career. Not then. He was kind of ahead of the game there. And actually, he was smart because it was really, really lucrative for him. For a while, he took over the lead role in Spin City, if any of you are old enough to remember that.
Yep.
After Michael J. Fox began to grow sick, he took over for him. Soon after, when that show got canceled in 2003, Charlie joined the sitcom, we all know it, 2.5 Men. I'm sure you've got the jingle in your head right now. It became an instant and massive success. Like, I'm still shocked how much of a hit this show was.
Yep.
But as Sarah pointed out earlier, it was a natural fit, right? Charlie Sheen was playing Charlie Harper, a jingle writing bachelor with a Malibu beach house who loved to indulge. That is Charlie. By 2010, it made Charlie the highest paid actor on TV. Sit down when I tell you this. He was being paid $2 million an episode. That's bonkers. That's unheard of. He became the highest paid ever in history. So you could say he hit the peak of his career and the peak of really anyone's career in Hollywood. He did the thing that he dreamt of. He made it. And there was more good news in this era. Charlie met and married actress Denise Richards. She even guested on 2.5 Men as his girlfriend. Now, I love Denise Richards. I think she's such an angel. She's been through it. And as folks confirm in the documentary, she worked very hard to get Charlie straight and be there for him. She always called out his user friends. She called out his team for not being there for him, for not protecting him. She said there would be times where it felt like she was in Weekend at Bernie's, which, if you don't know, basically, let me give you the tiniest gist. But essentially, a man is dead and he gets hauled around by his friends so that people will think he's still alive. And she felt like people were doing that to Charlie, like his own friends would do that. And while Charlie was passed out, they would like get him to sign things. And it's disgusting. And she was witnessing a lot of it. To this day, even long after their divorce, she still works so hard to support him. The couples have 2 daughters together, Sam and Lola. When the girls were super young and Charlie was, again, at his peak with the sitcom, he was getting back into the thick of it. So, and by that, I mean the drugs. And Denise described it as a nightmare trying to deal with him and somehow keep the family together. Ultimately, after 15 years together, Denise filed for divorce in 2005, accusing Charlie of alcohol and drug abuse with threats of violence. So notice that's also been a pattern in his life with the women he's been with. So Charlie's not looking good. 3 years later, Charlie married his third wife, Brooke Mueller. Here's a fun fact. At the wedding, Martin had a very brief speech. He simply said, "I hope you know what you're doing." I
love Martin Sheen.
I do too. He's lovely. You know, watching the documentary, and if you read the memoir, he just comes up across more wonderful. Anyway, the year after.
That's our president. That's the president of the United States. Put some respect on his name.
You got that right. The year after, Charlie and Brooke had twin boys. Both were born with heart problems. Now, this was the first time I think Charlie got a glimpse at how much his team maybe were not necessarily on his side. So the show, 2.5 Men, refused to take a pause so that Charlie could be there for his kids in the hospital and be with them, which is pretty brutal. I feel like actors get a little bit more leeway with that kind of thing nowadays, but at the time, they were not interested in any kind of break, pause, nothing.
Yeah.
And that's because the ratings were so insane. Like they wanted those killer ratings and they knew that they needed Charlie to have those killer ratings. Yeah. So he was racing between the set and the hospital day by day by day. And I feel like this is the first time where he was really growing a resentment for the work. And it seems like he already maybe had a bit of resentment for the fame, considering how deep in the drugs he was. I feel like he was anesthetizing himself. I don't know. This just felt like another key benchmark moment. And what made matters worse is that Brooke too was and actually is a drug addict. She has been for some years, and things came to a head for both of them on the Christmas of 2009 when Charlie was arrested for allegedly assaulting Brooke, who was drunk at the time and interestingly recanted her claim of abuse the day after, getting Charlie released from jail. Now, she and Denise appear in the documentary, which is incredible. Just goes to show how much these people have really worked on their relationships and are really together in their lives. But she says in the documentary that she actually can't even remember what happened that day. And she excused the entire incident to her own craziness. Obviously, we can't say what happened there. We don't know. But I will just point out that Charlie does have a history of being accused of threatening violence against women. Now, in November 2010, so just some months later, Charlie filed for divorce. Brooke got a restraining order against him, and social services took both of their sons. So talk about another big, big moment where hopefully things start to click into place. During a lot of these periods when their sons would be taken, Denise actually took custody of the kids when both parents were in rehab. And I just love this. And both of them had their blessings, including Brooke. Both have been very vocal and appreciative of Denise. Like she's done this many, many times throughout the years. She's taken care of them. She's seen as like a stepmother figure to those boys, which God is just so beautiful. I mean, what a woman.
What a lovely
honestly.
woman.
Yeah, really,
like just
truly.
I mean, that's the best thing he ever did was marrying her, because that's like, where would he be without having her in her role in his life?
It kills me because in the documentary, she's wonderful in the doc, by the way, and very, very candid. She breaks into tears a couple times, and she says in the documentary she's still in love with him. It really broke my heart. But I think she was smart enough to know that it's not good for her and it's not good for her kids. And that takes a lot of strength to be able to look at the love and say, actually, we can't do this. I've got to do what's right for my family. So we love you, Denise. Now, today, both boys actually do live full time with Charlie, who is a single parent with them. So, you know, a little bit of sneak peek as to how far Charlie does come. That year, in 2010, it pretty much all came crashing down. So he didn't have his boys anymore. He broke up from Brooke. He had this little stint in jail. He basically crashed hard. He missed rehearsals for the show. He got into a massive public feud with the sitcom creator Chuck Lorre, who now we know also created Big Bang Theory and like a lot of content that I find very annoying, but has been very popular. And Charlie also just lashed out at everybody in really bizarre and rambling interviews. Now, you guys will remember this period because this is when he was going around saying, I'm winning. Like that was that period when he just seemed like he was on one. And he famously called himself a warlock with tiger blood.
Still funny. It's still funny.
Not only is it funny, but like CNN seriously covered that news, talking about what, and they had a psychic on to talk about it. It was batshit. Anyway, he claimed, and mind you, that psychic said that Charlie cannot be a warlock because warlocks have wisdom, and Charlie does not have wisdom.
That's fair. That's a good point.
He's smart. He's right. And Charlie was also saying, I'm not bipolar. I'm bi-winning. Just to share a little bit of those moments.
Why is it always so funny? He should have been in advertising. Like, this man is hilarious.
I mean, what else was... That's part of the reason why 2.5 Men, I think, worked so well. Because clearly he was more of a comedian than a drama actor. Like, he did latch on to something here. Now, you know what? I can't lie, because as I was researching this episode, I went back and watched a lot of those clips, and we'll link to a lot of them. But he did make me laugh a lot. I mean, the man was in a manic state, but he was making me laugh. Anyway, finally, somehow, shockingly, Warner Brothers fired him from 2.5 Men. Now, you'll remember they tried to replace him for a bit with Ashton Kutcher. It did still go on for a little while, but I think ultimately it just was not going to do the numbers it did without Charlie. Sarah, have we ever seen a worse meltdown in Hollywood? I mean, as I was writing this, I cannot honestly think of someone who's had such a wild trajectory.
No, I mean, people talk about Robert Downey Jr.'s legendary mishaps in his youth, but no, they didn't last as long.
Yeah.
They weren't as public. Like, I mean, Charlie was just speaking to the public, telling you, here's all the ridiculous stuff I think. So in some ways it was interesting because it was somebody who seemed to be enjoying their breakdown. And in retrospect, when you get healthier, that wasn't fun. But there didn't seem to be any shame, which is something that I do want to emulate. I do want to live with less shame in my life. So in some ways, I think we were all sort of jealous. We're like, here's this guy who's super rich. He can do whatever he wants. And he is doing whatever he wants. And he's saying whatever he wants. And he has so much self-esteem. And yes, he was clearly struggling at that time. But also, he appeared to be having fun. So, I mean, it's one of those things where we all should have been rooting for him to get help. And I think we were just rooting for the circus to continue. I think a lot of us were.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, isn't that interesting, though? Because we talked so much about how, say what we will about his acting skills, but a lot of people loved his acting. So they enjoyed watching him in all those movies. And then he was on 2.5 Men. People really enjoyed that. And then when he was a tabloid mess, people also enjoyed that. So this is that classic thing that we often attribute to, I would say, female celebrities, where we like when they're doing well, but we also love when they're doing badly. And I think he is such a good example, isn't he?
Yeah. And I guess the only other celebrity I can think of where their breakdown was this public is a situation where it was just sad and the person didn't need help is Britney Spears, right? I mean, there was a lot of public stuff happening, but it was very tragic and no one was really trying to help her. In Charlie's case, I mean, people were trying to help him. He was almost too big to get help because he could just reject your help, right? And he did reject help. So it is fascinating, and there are gender differences. If he'd been a woman, I think he would have ended up under a conservatorship, and he didn't, right? Because what he was doing was more destructive than... Britney Spears needed help, but what he was doing was incredibly destructive. So I do think that you can see a gendered double standard. We kind of let men who are spiraling, oftentimes we lead them to their own devices, which can be bad for them, but can also mean they don't end up in a conservatorship. So there's that. And he definitely, I would say, received less scrutiny than somebody like Lindsay Lohan, who had her breakdown basically as a child, right?
Yeah.
And now, and like in her 30s, she, through her, without really any family support, was able to get back on track. So there's a lot of male privilege here, I would say.
Oh my God, yeah, it's extraordinary. And I can't even believe it, because I got to remind you again, guys, there's so much in Charlie's history that happened. This is like just touching the surface. There's so much. So it's really unreal how many chances he got and how far he was able to go before he did crash and before he did kind of turn to sobriety. It's unbelievable to me how Warner Brothers took so long to get him off the show. I would have even imagined like at least maybe give him like half a season break, even that much, I think they very much could have kept the show going with the other stars, with John Cryer, his co-star. And I just feel like they weren't interested in even trying that because they were so scared of losing their cash cow. It's pretty disgusting. Or at least come up with some kind of arrangement. Like maybe he has to do therapy or whatever. And in exchange for that, this many episodes. I don't know. But I think these people did not care about this man. And at the same time, you're right. the people have cared far less about our favorite women. And that is really hard to digest. You're so right. God, Lindsay Lohan at a far younger age was treated so much worse. I keep saying it, but it's just crazy. I can't wrap my head around it. Guys, believe it or not, things continue to get so much worse. I'm laughing because what else is there to do? You have to laugh. Now, in 2015, and you really should sit down for this revelation if you don't already know it. In 2015, Charlie revealed on the Today Show that he was HIV positive. This came in the midst of this whole manic tour he was doing where, well, he was also doing a little bit of a one-man show tour, which was a disaster. And then at the same time, he'd been in the press making these weird jokes and being a little nuts. So when he made this announcement, it was pretty shocking. I remember even just being at work and we all just kind of like stopped working for 5 minutes because we were so gobsmacked at a newspaper, by the way. We're also talking politics and everything. Charlie Sheen had our mouths hanging open. Denise is actually the one who pushed him to get tested because he'd been sick for a while and he was so certain that it was cancer or something else. And she was like, I have a feeling you might be HIV positive. Again, bless that woman, bless that goddess. And so he went in, he found out he had been diagnosed 4 years earlier. So prior to being on the Today Show, he kept it secret under threat of blackmail. Believe it or not, he said he paid millions in hush money. It's devastating because I think when he did actually announce it, people responded quite well. For the most part, the revelation reframed his later years in a pretty harsh light, right? Knowing what he was dealing with in all that time. So maybe that's part of the explanation of why he really did have such a heavy meltdown and crashed so hard and was so angry. Lawsuits followed. Critics accused him of being very reckless. He did say, and I do want to clarify this, that he'd been open with all of his sexual partners about his status. And actually, some of his exes did come on Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz and like other talk shows to say, actually, surprisingly, that Charlie had been quite respectful and had told them. Now, this also pushed him into a more candid stage of his life. He's got a lot of surprising people who comment for him in his docuseries, and it's phenomenal. It's one of the reasons the documentary is so great. One of the people who I was so surprised to see comment for him is his drug dealer and very good friend. Now, that drug dealer / friend loves Charlie, and he said they became friends pretty quickly. And he said he was also just personally getting so worried about Charlie during this time, and he could see how sick he was getting. And he actually decided to sell him weaker crack, less potent crack, without telling Charlie that he was doing that.
That's a friend. That's a good friend.
Sarah, I had to pause the documentary and take a few breaths because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It's incredible, isn't it? What a good friend. What a sweet drug dealer.
Not all heroes wear capes.
Correct. Some of them sell crack. And he made a good call because Charlie said that was so great he did that without telling Charlie because it helped. It made a difference. And it got Charlie to wean off. I'm telling you, Sarah, it did the trick.
Honestly, though, this man should run a rehab center then. I mean, it sounds like he knows. He's got it sorted. Like, good for him.
He's doing very well, though. So Charlie bought him a house. He's covered. Charlie's always taking care of.
Nice. I mean, honestly, that's a beautiful relationship. The love story, like the platonic love story of a man and his generous, lovely drug dealer. Like, no, I'm actually on board. I want to see a buddy movie based on this, actually.
It's very sweet. I think that's Pineapple Express, but yeah, there you go.
But James Franco's in that, and he ruins everything for me. So
fair enough. Again, Charlie also had his beautiful father, who we love so much, by his side, his family, his brothers. Everybody was giving him so much support. So he did, believe it or not, reach sobriety by 2017. And the linchpin that came for him, he says in the documentary and in his memoir, was that he missed so much time with his daughter, Sammy. And also he realized he'd missed a lot of time with his other younger daughter, Lola, and pretty much was not there for any of her childhood. And that realization hit him so hard. And he realized the only way I can be there for them is if I'm sober. He wanted to be the person who is always there when they call him and who can fill in for them when nobody else can be there. And by the way, Lola actually also appears in the documentary, and she said he is absolutely that person now, and she loves him so much. And his son also appears in the documentary and said the same thing, which is so lovely. And his other daughter, Sammy, actually posted on Instagram this week, right after the documentary premiered, and she watched the documentary and she posted this photo where she looked so emotional. And she said, I had no idea that we were the reason that he became sober. And so she clearly, it's been really meaningful for the family and for his children. In his book, he wrote, quote, "Betraying my children was worse than betraying myself. I'm not a victim. I own my mistakes." That's pretty great. That's pretty great.
Yeah.
That's something. Now, he turned 60 recently. He said he's been sober ever since then. He's keeping a pretty low profile. He spends time with his 5 kids. He takes on the very occasional role and speaks more openly about addiction and illness. His documentary and book, again, are so candid. And I think it says a lot that so many people from his past, again, including his ex-wives, Heidi Fleiss, his drug dealer, appear to comment. Clearly, he has a lot of people who love him. And I get the sense that anytime he meets anybody or he begins a relationship with anyone, romantic or platonic or whatever it is, people just fall in love with him. It's really fascinating, because even all of the other people we've spoken about, and I like the Britney example a lot of those people disappeared from her life over time. The people who were the closest to her and really cared, they're not there anymore. But for Charlie, they've all stuck by him so desperately, trying hard to get him to this point. He does share so many of his regrets, including his winning era. He said that was so embarrassing, and he regrets it a lot, which I was relieved to hear. Now, I want to address one thing. It's going to feel like a little bit of an aside, but I think it has to be addressed if we're talking about Charlie Sheen. And frankly, I was very shocked to see it gets addressed in the documentary. So just a little bit of a reminder. There have been rumors floating around for quite some time, I would say the last couple of years, that in 1986, Charlie raped the late Corey Haim when he was just 13. It's something that Corey Feldman, who, as we know, was best friends with Corey Haim, has insisted is true. At the same time, Corey Haim's mom has really aggressively denied it and said she knows who her son's rapist was and it was not Charlie. So I was impressed because the documentary filmmaker brings it up directly with Charlie in the doc and says, I need you to respond to these. What do you make of them? And is it true? What is it? Tell us about it. Charlie said it's a vile fiction and that it's absolutely not true. So just putting that out there because I feel like we have to touch on that.
Yeah.
Now, back to it. So just to wrap up, John Cryer, again, Charlie's 2.5 Men co-star, says in the documentary, and I think this is the most meaningful thing, quote, "I don't know that Charlie believes that he deserves what he's got. I think there's a part of him that throws it all away just to see if he ever deserved it. That is what drives people crazy who are close to him, is that there's so many great things about him if he only believed it." I think that just captures all of Charlie's trajectory. I think he never really felt like he deserved anything he had. I think it made him scared to have that level of fame once he actually got it. It's a wild thing to have this really massive dream and then actually get the massive dream. And I think he wasn't prepared for it. Sarah, we talked a little bit about the massive privilege that he's had. Do we feel like he's a cautionary tale? Because I feel like he should be dead. Like, I cannot believe he's alive. He did every drug under the sun, you guys, and he did a lot of it. How is he alive?
I mean, he's Gen X Keith Richards, right? Like, that's how he's alive, I think, where it's, you know, it got to a point with Keith Richards where we all thought he was going to die young, and now everyone's like, well, he'll live forever, right? Now he's famous for being an older guy. Yeah, I mean, I guess he is a cautionary tale because he should be, but then he's not because it's all fine. And he even somehow got sober, which is very difficult to do. I know Matthew Perry tried for years, many times to get sober, worked really hard and did not succeed in getting sober. So this Charlie Sheen is literally the luckiest man in the world. Like, no one is luckier than Charlie Sheen. The fact that it worked out, like, there are plenty of other people, like, case in point, Matthew Perry, who had a similar amount of resources, lots of money, had the white male privilege that, you know, makes people more willing to give you a second chance. And he died tragically. So I have to say there is no one in the world who is luckier than Charlie Sheen. And you know what? I wish this for everyone. I wish a recovery for everyone. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve it. I'm not saying that at all. But yeah, I mean, I almost wouldn't want to tell my kid this story because it makes it seem like all of these things are survivable when for 0.9% of people, even when they have extraordinary amounts of help and privilege, they are not survivable things.
No, and it sounds like he put his body through so much hell and torture. And again, he is HIV positive. He's still, I think, probably reeling from some effects of all of the drug abuse over the years. And some of his relationships are fractured. And I don't know that he will ever make it back to TV. I imagine he's almost uninsurable. Yeah, I mean, Brooke Mueller, his ex-wife and the mother of his 2 boys, she's still deep in drug abuse, and she does appear in the documentary, and she does rave about him too, and she talks a lot about how, and they both talk about it, and he's talked about how much he can't wait for her to get to that point, but recovery comes at a different time for everybody. And one of their sons does say he loves his mom so much, especially when she's sober, which made me cry. Like, it's quite a touching documentary in a lot of moments, as wild as it is. But yeah, so you're right. It's different for everybody, and God, we want recovery for all of these people. But I do think, again, it's the point of privilege, right? I mean, he also had all of the money at his disposal. Martin Sheen could throw him in rehab at any given time. Here's the thing, though, he couldn't make him stay, because a lot of the time Charlie would just leave the next day, right? So you have to want it. And I think for him, it was his kids that made him finally think, okay, I got to do this. He really did hit rock bottom. Like, this is a classic example of that. Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, he hit rock bottom many times. Like,
he did.
He had a low bottom.
He had a very low bottom.
He failed a lot of his children for a very long time. I mean, his eldest daughter, for example, probably didn't know him and as a sober parent until she was in her 30s. So I'm just saying, like, it took a long time. I do want to give him credit for getting sober for his kids, but I do think we need to acknowledge that it is kind of unfair that some of his children, it was almost a moot point by that, right? Like, his daughter has a kid, so I guess he's sober for her child. He's a sober grandfather, but and that's a real tragedy. She's not going to get the same experience that his other children are.
It's pretty brutal, and I can't imagine even also for the other kids who were there during so much of this hell that was being wreaked. The younger boys being taken by social services and then going with Denise, and probably not even understanding at that age what the hell is happening. Having 2 parents at home who are both addicts and probably in front of them many times, and who definitely fought a lot and were maybe allegedly violent with each other. These kids have been through hell. So even though they have their father now, they're not without their trauma, I have to assume. So the damage is done. That's the other thing, right? Like, there's only so much that you can fix and rewind. He's a hell of a cautionary tale. Okay, before we wrap up, we're going to take one more quick little break. We will be right back. And we're back. Okay, before we let you guys go, we got to do our quick little final segment, our favorite little moment. Hindsight is 2025, where we choose the one moment that we might have handled differently if we were the subject of the story.
I shouldn't have done that.
Sarah, I thought of just taking this out because I was like, everything?
Just one?
Well, how can we simply have one thing? So I wonder if I'm speaking for us both when I say this, but I wish he just listened to his father, the president, Martin Sheen.
Yeah.
Because Martin was always right. And Martin always had his son in his corner, and he was always there for him. And that man is still around, and he's probably suffered too. I just wish he heard his dad.
Yeah, I wish that too. I mean, listen, it's hard to pick just one moment. Yes, listen to your father. Your father's the president. He's very wise. Also, like, okay, here's another thing, which is going to sound shallow in comparison with what you said, but why do you have to do anger management? Like, you're so rich and you know it's a bad show. Why do you have to go back to TV to produce such dreck? Like, you don't need to.
Can I reveal something? I didn't mind the first few episodes. I'm so sorry, Sarah.
Okay,
I'm embarrassed actually. If it's you know what? It was a while back. I don't know what I was thinking. I liked the other parts of the cast. I can't even remember who was in there now. Was it Selma Blair? There was a few other folks.
Yeah, Selma Blair.
Who also is like, now I'm not a fan of anymore. Zionist. But anyway, he's put us through shit on TV and in movies too. You're so right. You know what else I would say? Be kinder to Denise Richards, sir.
She is lovely. It's funny because she's so undersung. Like, we celebrate Jennifer Garner for how committed she is to Ben Affleck. And we should celebrate her because she's done a lot of things for the father of her children to help him get sober. But I mean, he never put her through what Charlie put Denise through. She didn't have Jennifer, I do believe, would raise Ben's children if she had to, his children that are not hers. I believe she would, but she hasn't had to. So Denise, you are sainted. Like, what a lovely woman. Just, I hope she gets all the alimony. I don't know what their divorce agreement is, but I want so many good things for Denise Richards.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, that might be a fun thing to look into. I didn't look into that. I will say she's going through her own drama with her current ex. So we wish her well. Denise, we want you to have everything. We hope you come out of it greatly.
Mike White, put her in a season of White Lotus. I think she would kill it. I think she'd be great. And you can see the potential in her that previous directors didn't see. Also, I think she deserves to spend like 2 months filming something at a Four Seasons. I want that for her.
Oh, I love that, Sarah. That makes me really happy. Yeah, that would be so fantastic. She's a wonderful woman. Put her White Lotus. All right. I think that brings us to the end of this episode. What a time. Thank you to all of you wonderful listeners. I hope we haven't scared you too much with the Charlie Sheen of it all. You could listen to more of The Reheat for free on the Seeker app. You can also find the show on the Frequency Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to hear more from me, you can find me at _Sadaf Hassan. Sarah, where can our listeners find you?
Listeners can find me at Sahagian Sarah on Instagram. And if you liked this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe so other listeners can find us too. It does really help us. And if you would like us to keep growing, as we hope you do, we would love for you to follow us and support us on patreon.com at patreon.com/thereheat, where we've got some goods in store for you. It's going to be fun. Also, thanks for listening.
I'm Alex Sujong Laughlin, and on every episode of my new podcast, Try Hard, I'm talking to someone about something they've always wanted to do, but haven't. Yet. First, we dig into why they want to do it and what's been getting in the way. And then, we set a challenge for them. You can listen to Try Hard from Defector Media and Radiotopia wherever you find podcasts.